Hello again. As I mentioned the other day, more doctors are recruited from abroad in this country than are actually educated and trained in Britain. On the one hand, this looks good for diversity because many of those doctors are from Asia and some are from Africa. This certainly has the right optics, as they say these days. It looks good because anybody glancing at a hospital in one of our large cities will see at once that many of the staff are brown or black. There is, however, a problem, and that is that there is a distinct and very noticeable shortage of black doctors. No lack of doctors from India and Pakistan, of course, nor from Egypt or the Philippines. Very few, though, who are black, and those that one does encounter are usually Nigerian. When last did viewers come across a doctor in this country from the Caribbean or a black British doctor? This shows up glaringly when statistics are being compiled. Look at our hospitals, you'll see plenty of black security guards, of course. Also, a lot of black cleaners. Black British nurses? Certainly, but not doctors. It really looks lousy on your monitoring forms when most of the black people in your hospital are mopping the floors rather than performing brain surgery. And so moves are afoot to do something about the situation. The difficulty is, of course, that one can hardly operate a colour bar in recruitment and refuse to employ any more white doctors or Indians until there are enough from this country or the Caribbean. Enough black people, that is. For one thing, there are simply not enough doctors of this kind to go around. And so medical schools have been tinkering with their admissions criteria in an effort to rectify the situation. In the description to this video, I give a link to a report from the Sutton Trust, and fascinating reading it makes too. As viewers will probably know, to get into medical school in this country, the competition is extremely stiff. Even to be considered when you leave the sixth form, one must have 3 or 4 A levels at A star, or A at the minimum. That's just for starters. Straight away, this means that hardly any black students will be in the running, because black students tend to do poorly at A levels, with average point scores much lower than white or Asian students. Hardly any achieve 3 A stars in rigorous subjects such as mathematics or physics. By the by, in the description to this video, I give links to the government statistics on this matter of the ethnicity of A-level students, and also a link to the report from the Sutton Trust. This means that if admissions are set fairly in our medical schools, there is little chance of any black sixth formers being admitted to medical schools here. The way around this is that medical schools are now making what they call contextual offers. This is a very cunning scheme which allows them effectively to select applicants by ethnicity rather than academic achievement. What it amounts to is that ethnic minorities and working class school pupils are given special preference when decisions are made about whom to interview and admit. Because it is thought to be a good and desirable thing in itself that those studying medicine should contain more black people, or should reflect the community from which they are drawn, as we say these days, ways have to be devised by universities to ensure that more members of visible minorities, together with working class students, instead of those from white middle class families, are recruited. To do this, one begins by lowering the qualifications needed to get onto courses. Then, by analysing the postcodes of those applying, and using either a system called ACORD or another known as Polar, it's possible to spot those who live in poor districts and even identify individual streets in which few older adults have been to university. The schools which applicants have attended are also scrutinised, and if few pupils did well there at A levels or go to places such as Oxford or Cambridge universities, this is another positive mark. Children who have been in care are also singled out for special attention. Now, because black people and certain other visible minorities, those whose families are from Pakistan or Bangladesh, tend to be poorer and less well educated than the average white family, studying postcodes and schools in this way will provide one not only with poor working class pupils, but often those who are black as well. Those selected in this way will be allowed into medical school with lower qualifications than anybody else. I might mention that sometimes efforts are made by contacting schools to identify ethnicity as well. So, Newcastle Medical School, for instance, will offer such applicants a place if they get just 3 Bs at A level instead of 3 or 4 A stars, which are really required by everybody else. These programs are not conducted openly, as to say, nobody actually admits that the object of the exercise is to get more black people into medical schools, but it's done under the guise of increasing participation by working class students. It's not just any old working class students who are needed, though. Medical schools, just like hospitals, want to see far more black faces as doctors or trainee doctors. Pictures from the average medical school show loads of white students, Indians and Chinese ones, but scarcely any black ones at all. Simply adding a bunch of white working class students wouldn't make the appearance any more diverse. I need hardly say that this approach, which is now operated by every medical school in Britain, is fraught with hazard, and although it might be great for monitoring purposes, the end results are not promising. Allowing those who are not academically gifted and scientifically minded into medical schools is not the best idea that anybody has come up with. Birmingham University's medical school pioneered this kind of thing 20 years ago, and the results were disastrous. In 1992 to 1993, a small percentage of medical students there, just 6%, failed at least one of the examinations they took. Put this another way, 94% of students sailed through the course without failing any of their examinations. 10 years later, in the year 2002-2003, after introducing contextual offers for those from deprived backgrounds, the percentage of medical students at Birmingham failing at least one of their examinations had soared to 48%. In other words, from 94% of students passing all their examinations, within a decade only about half of them were doing so. A disproportionate number of ethnic minority students were struggling greatly to cope with the work. This is what's now starting to happen at all the medical schools in Britain.